I do want to start with Jimmy Garoppolo, because I'm not saying that he's on thin ice, because it's kind of difficult to be on thin ice when you're not even starting. It's kind of difficult to be on thin ice when you're the backup. But there is a quarterback in San Francisco that is on thin ice. No, it's not Jimmy Garoppolo, but it is Trey Lance. And again, people might start freaking out a little bit. How could you say that? What do you mean? He's on thin ice. He hasn't even started a game. He hasn't played this year yet. Calm down. Take a chill pill. It's going to be okay. I promise. But Jimmy Garoppolo, the thing on him is, if you missed it the other day, he just got his contract restructured to be the highest paid backup in the league. Now, that doesn't mean anything to me. Okay, I understand that. That means nothing. But the fact that they restructured his deal and didn't let go of him and didn't trade him really tells me something. And, maybe I'm looking into it a little too much, but I think from my perspective at least, if the 49ers were all in on Trey Lance and, that was the guy and, all that stuff, then Jimmy Garoppolo wouldn't be in the Bay Area anymore. And again, I get that is kind of a very up for debate type of thing. But Jimmy Garoppolo, ever since his season ended last year against in the NFC Championship game against the Rams, he was saying, oh man, I don't know if this is going to be my last game as a Niner, but if it is, I'm very grateful for everything, and all that stuff that he said at the end of that game, right? Because he wasn't sure if he was going to be back, and neither were we. No NFL fan or expert or anybody really knew whether or not Jimmy Garoppolo was going to be back. Rightfully so, because there had been a lot of hype around Trey Lance. Garoppolo wasn't necessarily looked at as the best quarterback around at the time, and so a lot of people thought, he was going to be traded, and plenty of teams called the Niners up for a possible, trade or sign and trade type. They were talking to the Niners about Jimmy Garoppolo. The Commanders were in talks with them. The Steelers were in talks with them. The Colts, the Falcons, I believe. What was another team? The Texans, I believe, were even in talks with Jimmy Garoppolo, as well as the Seahawks. So there was definitely some thought that maybe Garoppolo would be on the market amongst NFL teams as well, not just fans and experts in the media. But teams thought Garoppolo was on the market too, and they were saying, hey, we need a quarterback. We can give you some pretty good stuff for Garoppolo. We want a quarterback, and he's a guy that we are really interested in. And, one thing leads to another. The Colts trade for Matt Ryan. That was kind of a head scratch. You said, okay, I guess they're done with Garoppolo. The Steelers go and get Trubisky. You say, okay, maybe these could still get Garoppolo, but maybe Trubisky's going to be the guy. Then they drafted Kenny Pickett, and now you're thinking, well, they're probably not going to get Garoppolo. The Falcons had Mariota. Then they drafted Ritter, and in the back of my mind, at least, I was thinking, okay, maybe they'll still go after Garoppolo. The Commanders went and got Wentz. That kind of, was it for them. The Broncos traded for Russell Wilson. The Panthers got Baker Mayfield. And the Seahawks wind up with Geno Smith and Drew Lock. And the Texans wind up with Davis Mills. And again, there are still teams out there that could use Jimmy Garoppolo. And I'm sure if he was on the trade market, they would be trading for him right now. I mean, look at the Cleveland Browns. They dug themselves a hole. I mean, they're going to be rocking with Jacoby Brissett for the first 12 weeks of the season. So I'm sure if Garoppolo was available, the Browns would probably think of trading for him, especially when they have a guy like Kareem Hunt that wants out anyway. It just seems logical to me. The Seahawks, all right, Geno Smith and Drew Lock, I kind of touched on this last week. I don't really think those are guys that I can get too excited about. And then the Niners restructured his deal. So he's now on a 1-year deal. And what that says to me is the Niners are not sold on Trey Lance. And if the Niners aren't sold on Trey Lance, then neither should I. And I'm not. And again, to me, if you were so confident in Trey Lance, I don't think there would be really any need for Jimmy Garoppolo, right? I just, again, I'm not an expert. Don't take my word for it. But I think, again, like I said, if you were all in, if you were 100% confident that Trey Lance was going to be the quarterback in San Francisco 5 years down the line, I don't think you would restructure Garoppolo's contract and give him as much money as they did. Again, it tells me that the Niners are not very confident on Trey Lance, and they're hoping that they're wrong, right? They're probably going into this season saying, hey, hopefully he can prove us wrong, and hopefully he comes out and plays well, right? Because you're hoping, any team's going to hope that their quarterback plays well. But they're probably looking at Lance and they're saying, well, we're not feeling it, but if he doesn't play well, or if he does, then that's great. But if he doesn't, Garoppolo, welcome back. Hey, we love you, Jimmy G. You're in, right? And that's what it tells me. So that is something that I would look out for. I would look out for how Trey Lance does as the Week 1 starter, because they're going to start Lance Week 1. Right? They've already decided that. I'm pretty sure that's already out there. Right? That is about. I'm pretty sure that's as locked in as it gets at this point. I don't think there's any wiggle room there unless something happens within the next week and change. So I think what the Niners are doing is they're looking at Trey Lance and they're saying, this is your year. If you do well, welcome to the Bay. If not, you're going to be the backup or you're going to be somewhere else. Jimmy G, you are our fallback option. If you play well this year, great. That gives you a nice rap sheet for whatever team we're going to trade you to next year. And if you don't do great, well, that's fine. You're out of here anyway. And I think they are looking at, right now, the Niners are down to 2 options at quarterback for the next, 5 years or so, for the future. They're looking at Trey Lance, or they're looking at the draft or trading for somebody. You look at next year's draft already, and again, I get it's early, right? But you're talking about Bryce Young. You're talking about C.J. Stroud, possibly, from Ohio State. I know Ohio State quarterbacks haven't done, amazing in the NFL in their first few years, but just looking at high-level college quarterbacks that are going to be, out there, that's a guy, and, there's plenty more guys I could talk about from college, but you get the point. Or they might trade for somebody, who knows? They could be trading for Ryan Tannehill if Malik Willis is going to get the job, and we'll get to that in the next segment. But, there are plenty of quarterbacks out there that could be on the move within the next, year or two, and I'll get to those quarterbacks. I'll, get into that a little bit later. And, I think for the Niners, if it's not Trey Lance, it's not necessarily, we're going to draft a guy, or whatever. And they might draft the guys next year no matter what, depending on where they are in the drafts and all that stuff. And again, it's too early to tell how that's all going to, shake out. But right now, I think the Niners are either looking at Trey Lance as their future guy, or they are looking at possibly trading for somebody, or the draft. And that's pretty much it. Because either way, Garoppolo is not going to be the quarterback in San Francisco next year. I highly doubt it. And Ryan Tannehill basically said, well, not basically, he actually said this fully. He literally said, it's not my job to mentor Malik Willis.